The sound of laughter drifted from the open window, but Clara's heart wasn't in it. She stood alone in the quiet of her small bedroom, clutching a secret that had the power to change everything. In her trembling hands was a tiny strip of plastic, the faint pink lines glowing like a promise of tomorrow. After years of waiting, hoping, and silently praying, life had finally whispered yes, she was going to be a mother. Her chest tightened with a rush of emotions, joy, fear, and a fragile hope that somehow this would heal the cracks that had been spreading through her marriage. She imagined the moment she would tell Daniel, the way his face would light up, the tears of happiness they might share. She held on to that dream as if it were a lifeline. But dreams have shadows, and Clara couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling that had been haunting her for months. The late-night phone calls answered in hushed tones, the sudden need for business dinners that stretched until dawn, the faint perfume lingering on his clothes that was not hers. Still, she tried to believe, tried to silence the voice inside that whispered something was wrong. She told herself that love was stronger than doubt. She told herself that Daniel would never betray her. Yet as she folded the tiny baby shoes she had bought in secret, a symbol of the surprise she planned to reveal, her hand brushed against a letter hidden among Daniel's papers. The words blurred before her eyes, but the meaning was clear. It wasn't just another woman. It was someone far closer, someone she had trusted like a sister. Clara's knees buckled, her heart cracked, but in that moment she swore she would not be defeated. What Daniel didn't know was that life had already given her a reason to rise stronger than ever. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, the letter still trembling in her hand, her mind spinning as if the world had tilted off its axis. Her best friend, the woman who had held her secrets, shared her laughter, and stood beside her in every season of life, was the one who had stolen Daniel's heart. The betrayal was deeper than she could put into words. It wasn't just losing her husband. It was losing the person she had once trusted like family. She thought back to the nights Sophia had stayed over, the mornings filled with coffee and conversation, and the countless times Clara had poured out her heart, never suspecting that Sophia was silently weaving herself into Daniel's world. When Daniel came home that night, his eyes didn't hold the warmth she longed for. They were distant, distracted, as if he were already halfway gone. Clara wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, but her lips refused to betray the secret she carried within her, the life growing quietly, waiting to be announced. Instead, she asked simple questions, and he gave hollow answers. She could almost hear the unspoken truth between them, heavy and suffocating. Days later it happened. Daniel sat across from her at the kitchen table, his voice flat, almost rehearsed. He said he had found love elsewhere, that Sophia understood him in ways she never could. He spoke as if their years together were an old coat he no longer wished to wear. Clara's chest ached, but she refused to crumble in front of him. She clutched her belly, a silent reminder that she wasn't truly alone. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them away, determined not to let him see her broken. Deep down she knew this pain would shape her, and one day he would look back and realize what he had thrown away. For now she let him walk out the door, unaware that the story was only beginning, and that destiny had already chosen her side. The silence in the house was louder than any argument Clara had ever endured. Every creak of the floor, every ticking second on the clock seemed to echo the emptiness Daniel had left behind. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter, and her once warm home felt like a stranger's dwelling, hollow and cold. She carried her growing belly from room to room, whispering promises to the tiny life within her. I will protect you. I will give you more love than the world can take away. Yet behind those whispered vows, the weight of fear pressed hard. How could she raise a child alone? How would she face the stares of neighbors who once envied her perfect marriage? Whispers soon followed her wherever she went. In the market, women lowered their voices when she passed, their eyes darting with a cruel mixture of pity and curiosity. Friends who once filled her evenings with laughter now avoided her calls, unsure of what to say. Clara's circle, once wide and comforting, had shrunk to nothing but shadows. But what cut deepest was Sophia's absence, the silence of someone who had once been her confidant, now the thief of her family. There were nights Clara lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the storm of doubts pounding in her chest. Yet in those moments, she felt the baby kick, a soft but powerful reminder that she was not powerless. Every flutter was like a spark pushing back the darkness. It became her lifeline. The world thought she was broken, abandoned, left to wither away in her grief. But Clara was quietly gathering strength, brick by brick, vow by vow. One day, she would no longer be the woman people pitied. She would rise not in spite of the betrayal, but because of it. And when that day came, no one, not even Daniel and Sophia, would be able to ignore the force she had become. Clara's journey into motherhood became the fire that forged her strength. She started with nothing but determination and the quiet hum of life inside her guiding every step. Each morning, she woke before dawn, her hands trembling as she stitched together small projects from home, handmade clothes, decorations, anything that could bring in a few coins. At first it was survival, but soon those little creations found their way into the hearts of others, admired for their beauty and care. Orders trickled in, then flowed, until Clara realized she was building something far greater than a means to pay bills. She was building a future. With every passing day, Clara transformed. The timid woman who once relied on Daniel's approval was gone. In her place stood someone fierce, someone who could negotiate with suppliers, charm clients, and still come home to sing lullabies to her child. Her small living room became a workshop, her kitchen table a desk for designs. She studied at night, taught herself skills she had once been told she would never need, and refused to let exhaustion silence her ambition. Her child grew alongside her dreams, their laughter filling the rooms that once held only sorrow. Clara no longer flinched at whispers from neighbors. She walked past them with her head held high, a quiet smile playing on her lips. She was no longer just surviving, she was thriving. She bought her first storefront after years of saving, and when she unlocked the door to her shop, she felt a surge of victory run through her veins. This was more than a business. It was proof that betrayal could be turned into brilliance. Clara became a woman people admired, a mother who turned pain into power, a survivor who carved her own destiny. And as her life blossomed, she carried with her a certainty. One day, the people who had broken her would see what they had lost, and they would be the ones left in silence. The park was alive with the golden glow of late afternoon, children's laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Clara sat on a bench, her eyes following the small figure of her son racing down the path, his carefree joy a reminder of why she had never given up. She adjusted the papers in her bag, designed sketches for her next project, and felt a surge of gratitude for how far she had come. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a familiar silhouette. Her breath caught, her heart skipping a beat. It couldn't be, yet as he stepped closer, time seemed to fold back on itself. Daniel. He froze mid-step, his gaze locked on Clara as if the earth had stopped turning. Gone was the woman he once dismissed as weak. Before him stood someone radiant, poised, and untouchable. He looked older, the weight of choices carved into his features, his once confident stride reduced to hesitation. The child running toward Clara made his eyes widen even more, realization flooding over him like ice water. For years he had convinced himself he had chosen happiness, chasing after passion that burned out too quickly. Now, confronted with the family he abandoned, he was the outsider looking in. Clara didn't flinch. She gathered her son into her arms, her calm smile cutting sharper than any words could. Daniel's lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. Every memory of the night he left her, every cruel word he had spoken, hung between them like a ghost. The park seemed to hush around them, the laughter fading, the world holding its breath. For the first time, Daniel saw what he had lost, not just a wife, but a life built on resilience and love he could never reclaim. Clara looked at him with eyes no longer clouded by pain, but lit with strength, and in that silence, he knew. Regret had finally found him. Daniel finally gathered the courage to step closer, his voice unsteady as he whispered her name, as if saying it might bridge the years that had passed. Clara met his gaze with calm, her son's small hand tucked securely in hers. She did not tremble, nor did her heart ache as it once would have. Instead, there was a steady flame in her eyes, the kind that comes only from surviving storms and finding light on the other side. For a long moment she said nothing, letting the silence remind him of the choices he had made. "You left when I needed you most," she said at last, her tone soft but unyielding. "And what you thought would break me became the reason I discovered my strength." Her words struck harder than anger ever could. Daniel looked down, shame tightening his shoulders, but Clara stood tall. She pointed gently toward her son, who was now busy drawing shapes in the dirt with a stick. "He is my greatest gift. He gave me courage. He gave me purpose, and he reminded me that love can grow even in the ruins." Daniel's lips trembled as if to apologize, but Clara raised her hand, stopping him. "You don't owe me words, and I don't owe you forgiveness. What's gone is gone. I've built a life you can never undo, and I don't live in the shadows of the past anymore." There was no bitterness in her voice, only truth. She gathered her son, smiled gently, and turned to leave, the setting sun framing her like a silhouette of triumph. Daniel remained rooted to the spot, his chest heavy with the weight of regret he would carry forever. As Clara walked away, her son's laughter ringing through the park, she felt no trace of sorrow. Only peace. She had been abandoned, betrayed, and written off, but she had risen from the ashes to write her own story. And for anyone watching, her life was proof that even the deepest heartbreak can become the foundation of a powerful new beginning.